Revenge of the Sith. This is definitely my favorite of the prequels, and I think a lot of people agree as well. The action, the acting looks a little bit better than the previous ones, not by much, but just a little bit. The emotion, the fact that, it's setting up events for New Hope. I think like one of the downsides, it kind of wraps things up a little bit too neatly, but I'll get to that. Right from the get-go, you kind of get this whole epic space battle. You kind of see the dynamic between Anakin and Obi-Wan. Now they're more like brothers instead of like the whole father-son dynamic. They're working together a lot, getting through like the enemy ships, and then eventually onto General Grievous's ship because the Chancellor was kidnapped. And they kind of set that up in the Clone Wars micro series, which I kind of wish they had that as canon in the Clone Wars series, the 3D animated one, but oh well. In my head, it's canon, so it's cool to see that kind of like setup of General Grievous in the micro series, and then seeing him in live action for Revenge of the Sith, because I was a little bit older at this time. I was about like 12 years old when this movie came out, so I was definitely following along. I was watching all the previous prequel movies. I was watching the Star Wars micro series, so I was like super hyped for Revenge of the Sith. It was really like my first Star Wars movie that I saw in theaters. Definitely got my money's worth with that whole space battle. The rescuing of the Chancellor, it's very much inspired by the events of A New Hope, because I know there's a whole like kind of like ring theory out there of like a lot of events from Revenge of the Sith are kind of like the flip side of the events of A New Hope. So it's kind of cool seeing that. I know nothing from that theory has been confirmed, but I mean it's kind of cool to think about. So yeah, so they go in, they find the Chancellor in kind of like that open chamber room, kind of like a callback to Return of the Jedi, kind of like the setting of that movie. They take out Count Dooku, they rescue the Chancellor, kind of get off the ship, and that's kind of like the start of Anakin's kind of turn to the dark side, and Chancellor Palpatine's turning him to the dark side of like tempting him, because Anakin says like, it's not the Jedi way to kill Count Dooku, he should just stand trial. But Chancellor Palpatine is seeing Dooku failed him. He's obviously has eyes on Anakin to be his new apprentice that kind of been set up from the previous two movies, and so he kind of has like an iconic line like, "Do it." And then Anakin slays Count Dooku, and that he just murdered someone again. Kind of call back to like when he took out the Tusken Raiders, and he kind of took revenge because as Palpatine says, like, he cut off your arm, you want revenge. So yeah, kills Count Dooku, rescues the Chancellor, has that kind of whole like epic kind of crash landing sequence onto Coruscant, and the plot kind of goes from there, where you kind of have the whole Clone Wars background. Obi-Wan has been assigned to take out General Grievous, because if they take out General Grievous, that'll end the war and everything. So then he goes to Utapau, takes on General Grievous, has his like 4 arms and everything, and the kind of lightsaber duel in that one's kind of like underwhelming, because we set up in the Clone Wars micro series of him being this big bad villain, taking out all these Jedi, and then this one, Obi-Wan kind of cuts off 2 of his hands pretty easily, and they have their whole chase where General Grievous is kind of on this whole hamster wheel thing through Utapau. Obi-Wan catches up with him, kind of has like a fist fight with him, because Obi-Wan loses his lightsaber, which he gets back later on by Captain Cody, and Obi-Wan's forced to actually shoot General Grievous in the chest and like take out his heart and have him burn up and everything, and has that line like, "So uncivilized," throws it away. So he has his whole storyline, and then on the other side, Anakin is kind of bouncing from character to character. On one hand, he has his interactions with Obi-Wan and the Council about him wanting to join the Council, but the Council's really just wanting him to spy on Palpatine because they're expecting some shady stuff going on with him, which they could have suspected way earlier, but I guess Palpatine was just so powerful to blind the Jedi to what's going on. So they're wanting him to spy on the Chancellor. He has this whole scenes with Palpatine. Palpatine's kind of slowly but surely kind of tempting him about the dark side and everything, because earlier Anakin had that dream about Padme dying in childbirth, because it's revealed that Padme's pregnant, and that like what they're gonna do, how are they gonna hide this and everything. So there's this whole conflict there. So Anakin's trying to find ways to kind of either learn to let his feelings for Padme go, or to find a way to save her. So then Palpatine brings up at the opera of this whole backstory of Darth Plagueis about how he influenced the midichlorians, which I won't even get into midichlorians. How controversial those are, but anyway, he talks about how he can influence them to create life, and Anakin's like, "Is there any way to learn this power?" And Palpatine's like, "Not from a Jedi," implying that you can only learn it from a Sith. So yeah, we kind of have these like different storylines going on. Then eventually Palpatine tells Anakin that he's a Sith Lord that they've been looking for, and that he wants him to join him in order to save his wife, but Anakin doesn't want anything to do with that. So then he talks to Mace Windu, and then tries to have this whole kind of like arrest of Palpatine. So then Mace Windu and 3 other Jedi go into Palpatine's chambers and try to place him under arrest, but obviously Palpatine's not going to go quietly, so then activates his lightsaber, jumps towards Jedi, takes 3 of them out, battles Mace Windu, but Mace Windu knocks him out. He's about to kill him. Then Anakin comes into the room, and Palpatine like shoots his lightning at Mace Windu, and it gets shot back in his face. A little, I guess, foreshadow to Rise of Skywalker, and which I won't get into that. If you want to see my review for Rise of Skywalker, you can just watch my other videos. So anyway, Mace Windu is about to slay Palpatine, but then Anakin gets his lightsaber out because he knows that Palpatine is like the only person who could help him figure out a way to save his wife, so cuts off Mace Windu's hand. Palpatine shoots him out of the window, which there's theories that Mace Windu actually survived, but we'll see if that's confirmed or not. Probably not. But yeah, so then Anakin, fully gives in to Palpatine, turns to the dark side. They try to find a way to create life, and Palpatine tells Anakin that the Jedi are trying to rise up and try to take over. So, the whole Order 66 sequence is probably the best sequence in the entire movie, of like the clone troopers turning against the Jedi, wiping them all out, and Anakin storming the Jedi Temple, taking out the younglings, which was a very sad scene. And then, him going to Mustafar and then taking out Viceroy Gunray and all the other separatist leaders. Obi-Wan obviously finds out about Order 66. He almost gets killed in Order 66 along with Yoda, and they become the only surviving Jedi. They reunite on Coruscant, meet up with Bail Organa, try to figure out what's going on. They get into the Senate because Bail Organa has a meeting, and then Obi-Wan and Yoda stow away. They go into the Jedi Temple, take out those clone troopers, see the hologram of Anakin taking out the Jedi, and Obi-Wan's like, it can't be. And Yoda has his line of like, twisted by the dark side, young Skywalker has become. So then they kind of go on their separate missions. Obi-Wan meets up with Padme, tells her about Anakin turning to the dark side. Padme doesn't believe him, so she kind of goes off to Mustafar to talk with him. Obi-Wan stows away on the ship, and they kind of fly off together. Meanwhile, Yoda goes into the Senate, tries to take out the Emperor, after he kind of like has his rise to power, where, he talks about like, the Republic will be reorganized into the first galactic empire for a safe and secure society. So now he's Emperor. Yoda goes after him, but fails, and then Padme meets up with Anakin, tries to bring him back to the light side, but he sees Obi-Wan, coming out of the ship. He gets upset, Force chokes out Padme, she goes down, then Anakin and Obi-Wan have their whole lightsaber duel, which I thought was pretty cool, but I think it's very over the top. Like, when I was a kid watching it, I thought it was like, this is the most amazing lightsaber duel of all time. But then watching it as adults, like, okay, it kind of goes over the top. They kind of go onto like that whole like railing, and then it kind of gets broken off because like they, take out like the shield while they're, swinging their lightsabers, and like the lava goes onto the railing, kind of goes down. They're trying to climb up the railing as it's sinking the lava. I'm like, okay, it's kind of going a little bit overboard. But anyway, they kind of go on to like cliff face or whatever, the whole iconic line of, it's over, Anakin, I have the high ground now, you underestimate my power, don't try it. And then Anakin like jumps up, tries to jump over Obi-Wan to slam down, but then Obi-Wan activates his lightsaber, slices his limbs off. He's on like the little cliff side right where the lava is. He gets burnt up. Obi-Wan has his lines like, you were the chosen one, you said to destroy the Sith, not join them, you were my brother, Anakin, I loved you. He takes Anakin's lightsaber, and that gets set up for A New Hope, where he gives the lightsaber to Luke, and Anakin's like all burnt up to a crisp. Palpatine comes in, rescues him, takes him to the planet where he's finally put into like the Darth Vader suit, and then Obi-Wan takes Padme off. Padme has the twins, Luke and Leia, and then Bail and Yoda and Obi-Wan decide what they're going to be doing with the twins. Bail decides to take Leia and like raise her to become a princess and everything of Alderaan, and then Yoda and Obi-Wan decide that Obi-Wan should take baby Luke to Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru because that's his family on Tatooine. So then they kind of have their whole separate missions. Meanwhile, we have another fun scene of Darth Vader finally being awakened, like asking where Padme is, and then the Emperor lies to him, saying that in your anger you killed her, and then he's like, no, which was kind of unnecessary. It's kind of laughable. And then George Lucas, tampering with the original trilogy, puts that whole no in Return of the Jedi, where Luke's being shocked by the Emperor. But anyway, so yeah, they're on the Star Destroyer ship. They look into the distance and see the Death Star being constructed, which I guess took like 19 years to be constructed and everything. And I guess George Lucas joked around saying like, oh, there are like supply problems and like union disputes, and that's why it took so long for the Death Star to be made. And then we kind of cut to Bail Organa with his wife and Princess Leia, and then we cut to Tatooine with Obi-Wan Kenobi dropping off Luke Skywalker to Uncle Owen and Beru, and they're kind of looking off into the twin sunset. Little like callback to A New Hope with Luke looking off into the twin sunset, and then Iris out, and then that's the end of the Star Wars prequel trilogy. Back when we thought that this would be like the end of all 6 Star Wars movies, back when we thought there was going to be 6 movies. So it was definitely like an emotional ending for sure, like watching it and then like not knowing like, oh well, this is the last Star Wars movie and there's not not gonna be anything after that. And then, obviously Disney came in and bought Lucasfilm, and then we got the sequel trilogy, and, you already kind of know my thoughts on that if you watched my previous Star Wars videos. But yeah, overall, I think it was definitely a good ending to prequel trilogy, a good ending at the time to the Star Wars saga. I mean, I had like some problems with the fact that, everyone kind of ends up in their exact positions at the start of A New Hope instead of allowing there to kind of be some time in between and kind of implying where these characters end up. So yeah, I think the ending felt kind of rushed in a way where, we have to have everything be exactly the way it is for A New Hope so you can watch it all in sequence. I guess because like this is before like comics and novels and all this stuff that kind of like filled in all the gaps and stuff before it was like canon and stuff. It was kind of like non-canon materials, like legends as it now it is. So I guess George Lucas was like, no, this is like a one and done. There's gonna be nothing in between episodes 3 and 4. Like this is it. Everyone's in their positions for A New Hope. So when you watch this, it's just like take out the disc for Revenge of the Sith and then just pop in A New Hope right after, and you wouldn't be confused about anything. So that's the only like, kind of downside about that. But other than that, I think this is definitely the best of the three, for obvious reasons. There's still like some cheesy dialogue between Padme and Anakin, the whole romance and stuff like that, and kind of an overabundance in like visual effects and whatnot. But I think George Lucas definitely learned his lessons from like the first two movies, and I feel like he was definitely more comfortable in this movie than he was in like the previous two, where he felt like comfortable in the director's chair and kind of really knew what he was doing, where the story was going, and how to kind of direct the actors, the best he could, and the visual effects artist the best he could to make his vision possible. So yeah, I think overall he did a really good job with this one, wrapping up the prequel trilogy and setting events for his original trilogy and everything. So yeah, definitely like a good way to kind of go out on his filmography moving forward.